Man, oh man, sharing my Street Fighter 2 World Warrior experience with you all last week was crazy fun, and today I'm doing the same with Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. You're watching Rayl Deal Games, and this week I'll be discussing Champion Edition. I went into this game with a load of questions on my mind, but one stands as the most essential. Did Champion Edition actually improve on World Warrior? If you've read the title already, you know what answer I came to, and by the end of this video, I'll explain exactly why Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition is actually worse than World Warrior, despite what you may have been led to believe looking at tier lists and rankings over the years. Now, on its surface, Champion Edition appears to be a strict upgrade to World Warrior, as it has the same core characters and seems to just unlock the boss characters for the player to enjoy. With a few character rebalancing elements as well, such as nerfing Guile just a hair, this is a fair assessment of the title from a PvP perspective. But that's not where I'm coming from. I've no one to play Street Fighter 2 with, which means I've been looking at these titles based on their playability today. For most people, that makes these titles entirely PvE, and in this context, Champion Edition is the worst game of the two, and as such, I couldn't bring myself to roll credits on the game with every character on the cast. I did finish the game with 5 characters, but for reasons I'll explain in due time, there's no world in which I would be able to stomach doing it with the remaining 7. In World Warrior, I played the game entirely guideless, and I continued to do so in Champion Edition as well. This is just the way I prefer to play games, and I plan to continue with this provision in place for all future titles. I make new gaming videos every single Friday, and I plan to release 3 more videos, each covering a different version of the remaining 90s era SF2 games in the coming weeks. If that and other gaming videos from your boy Rayl sound interesting to you, subscribe after smashing that like button. Let's discuss this game and all future ones I cover in the comments below. With all of that established, let's dive right in, shall we? By the time the sun set on my playthrough of World Warrior, Dhalsim was by far my least favorite character in the game because in a PvE context, he was straight up borderline unplayable. There's just a litany of issues with this character, such as the way nearly every attack, like every single one, is a liability, as the AI often counters them all on reaction with either a single powerful hit or a full combo. The only thing Dhalsim does that is actually safe is Yoga Fire, and this is something Champion Edition does have over World Warrior, as Dhalsim does seem more playable in this game. Some of this definitely comes down to the fact that I definitely have gotten better at Street Fighter since starting my process through the series. One thing I used more often this time around was the universal grab that I hardly ever used in World Warrior. Also, one of my core issues with Dhalsim's diving headbutt and corkscrew kick appears to be fixed in this game, as they don't seem to activate without the player pressing the down directional button now. I could be wrong about this, but in World Warrior, these attacks seem to be activated by proximity to the opponent, which killed me loads of times in my fights against Vega. None of this makes Dhalsim more viable or fun though. I did have an easier time with him this time around, but it still wasn't easy or fun. For those of you who didn't watch my World Warrior video, I've been recording the number of lives I burn in these SF2 games by equating each attempt to 50 cents. Through this symbolism, Dhalsim cost me $35 in World Warrior, and in Champion Edition he cost me $30.50, which is $4.50 or 9 credits less. He's still impacted quite a lot by the input reading of the CPU, which always impacts him far worse than the other characters on the cast. In this way, it is actually possible that he's worse in Champion Edition, as a lot of my success can be attributed to the new way in which I approached playing him. For example, I discovered that his close-up heavy punch, multi-proc headbutt, does quite good damage and dizzy buildup, and Vega was much easier this time around because his dive slash attack is easier to counter on reaction. My new approach to the character in conjunction with some character nerfing I'll talk more about later prompted me to begin walking down my opponents with Yoga Fire so that I could get into headbutt range. I would sometimes use the Yoga Fire as suppressive fire as I advanced in the air with angular ranged attacks. This diversification of my approach pressure allowed me to abuse the universal grab and headbutt to steal many wins. In this way, playing Dhalsim as a brawler actually made him more playable against the AI, even if this sort of play is possibly inadvisable against human players. players. In the end, Dhalsim still sucks and remains my least favorite character on the cast, and it's quite likely that playing him first colored my initial impression of Champion Edition in a negative light, something that would be further harmed by other shifts in the PvE experience of this game. Guile and Vega were by far the most problematic characters in World Warrior. Each would burn the most credits on each of my runs, and something else Champion Edition definitely improves over SF2's original iteration are these knuckleheads. In some ways, Guile seems outright neutered honestly, because he does pretty low damage for each individual attack now, and he'll often let attacks go through without trouble. In World Warrior, he would block essentially everything. Jumping in on him was a death sentence, and getting dizzied by a basic combo happened in 90% of all matches. In Champion Edition, Guile's standing medium punch is changed and worsened in a good way. In this game, it's an uppercut instead of a straight punch, and it doesn't combo as easily with a standing light punch. That's not to say Guile is bad, as I was able to beat Blanca with his Sonic Beam attack super easily. In this instance, Blanca didn't even cost me any quarters, which is quite unusual in this game, as I'll explain later. The AI Guile is just much easier for the player to compete against in this game, and I do speculate if this was one way Capcom responded to feedback from the first title. Vega too is more fair with his AI. He doesn't seem to use his chain link wall dive nearly as much anymore, and when he does, his dive attack is more easy to counter on reaction with a backwards jumping heavy kick. For reference, I was able to beat him on my first attempt as Honda, which required way more attempts in World Warrior. This means that they are more easy to get by, but the issue with them was not that their movesets were bad, other than specific aspects of Guile at least. The issue is that the AI was just overtuned for these two characters. But that means it's time to talk about the giant elephant in the room, the cheating AI. World Warrior had cheating AI, make no mistake. At times, the CPU can and will counter a player's attack with pinpoint perfection, attain frames of God mode protection, and blatantly ignore the rules of charge-style inputs for special moves. However, the number of times the CPU would cheat in each individual round was mostly manageable, Guile and Vega notwithstanding. The movesets of those two characters were so unbelievably cracked that even the times they weren't cheating felt unfair. While Guile and Vega are definitely more fair in Champion Edition, Capcom replaced those demons with two new problems: Blanca and a general increase across the board in the CPU's cheating proclivity. I'm isolating Blanca in this instance because he is especially broken, and regardless of the round he's on, he is always busted. There were very few instances where I had a good time against him, and my partial playthrough with Guile was one such case. There's things Blanca does in this game that I just didn't see in World Warrior, such as how he's able to do a double airball. What I mean by this is that Blanca can activate another airball special move before he touches the ground after the resolution of his first, and he used this clearly cheating cheese to steal rounds from me several times. Something else unique to Blanca is the way his grab is ridiculously more broken than any other AIs on the cast. While playing Honda, Blanca is able to use the extended hitbox from my 100-hand slaps to grab me, which typically results in 40% unpreventable damage. This obvious input reading is the most blatantly bad I've seen in a game so far, and it's even worse than the later stages of Mortal Kombat 2 in this regard, and that game is notorious when it comes to button reading AI cheating. In another instance, Blanca was able to land a 70% combo that was impossible for me to interact with while I was playing Vega, a character that literally tore through every other character, regardless of whether the CPU cheated or not. The reason I say this combo, which on the surface is not a true confirmed link, is impossible to interact with is because of the AI's cheating. In a fair match, this actually wouldn't have played out this way unless the other opponent just had the exact read, which at that point is just impressive. My fights with Blanca also brought back my confusion about how dizzying works in SF2. At times, it seems random on what combos dizzy and which don't. But I'll concede that it's possible there's some sweet spot mechanic in the hitboxes of SF2 moves that deal more posture damage that I'm just not aware of. By the end of my time with Champion Edition, I did thankfully kinda figure out Blanca's AI, since he seems incredibly weak to throws that are initiated on his back. This seems to be a trick that is replicable in nearly every other fight in the game, so this is a feature of SF2 design that has been there since the beginning or an oversight from the Capcom Capcom programmers. Even while cheating, CPU Dhalsim just sucks, which kind of vindicates my analysis of the character's design and overall viability. While I was able to roll credits with every character on the cast in World Warrior, these updated and worse aspects of the CPU's cheating ability just killed any want or will of mine to continue with the game. After 5 complete playthroughs, I gave up before finishing my Guile run and instead decided to do $5 or 10 credits runs of Bison and Sagat to finish out my time with Champion Edition. I mean, one of the touted features of Champion Edition is the inclusion of the boss characters, so how could I ever make this video without at least attempting to play through the games with each? The first boss character I tried out was Balrog, and he was mostly fun, as he's able to just R1 spam to victory in most matchups. Blanka was a serious problem though, as his crouch made 90% of my moves useless, and his lightning, which he can do seemingly whenever he wants, made him incredibly tough to beat. My Balrog run is where I'd learn just how broken Blanka is in regards to grabs, because anytime I would go for a grab, he would instantly counter grab me. I think out of the 30 or so grabs I attempted, I only ever managed to land 2. This was really frustrating and is one of the real issues of Capcom's SF2 fighters during this era. I really can't say it enough. All fighting games in the 90s were like this, at least until the late 90s, and I really feel like they should have designed the single player to be more fair to keep players playing long enough to get interested in the multiplayer component, which is where I would guess all of the money really was. Having played a lot of later arcade fighting games, this does seem to be something developers started to realize over time. It's just a shame that SF2 suffers as a result of the quarter crunching and munching aspect of early 90s arcade design. Vega was my second, and he is very clearly busted. Most characters couldn't actually deal with him at all because his speed is such a major advantage. However, with the input reading of the CPU, some, like Blanka, would essentially pre-counter several moves, making some matchups, including Sagat's, feel borderline impossible to win. The most broken character by far, Bison, was my third boss character pick, and I made it all the way to the Bison mirror match within a $5 playthrough. I did end up wiping on Bison, and if I hadn't gotten so burned out by the AI in this game, I would have actually rolled credits with him. Bison is so good at dunking on every character in the game, other than Blanka, that if I ever do play Champion Edition again, I wouldn't be against playing through the game with him. I definitely wouldn't feel bad about doing so because my general philosophy is that the instant a game becomes completely unfair, there's nothing wrong with me engaging in similar unfair tactics. My final partial playthrough in the game was my Sagat run, and this character is also super cracked. I wiped on the Sagat mirror because the CPU was better able to capitalize on the broken moves Sagat has. I did come close a few times, but I just could not close the distance against the AI. I was pretty stunned to see how good Sagat was against Blanka, so in my playthrough with him, it really was just the mirror that ruined my run. These characters are fun at times, but I'm not really someone that typically likes broken characters or strategies in games, especially when I know they're broken. In this instance, I was okay with it because of how stupid busted the AI can be, but the inclusion of the boss characters as playable fighters doesn't make up for the other prevailing issues in the PvE design of this game. It's really fortunate that I played this game through one of Capcom's re-releases because I would have spent so much money on an experience I overall wasn't a big fan of if I'd played this in arcades back in 1992. So this section of the review is here mainly so that I can keep you all up with my hypothetical cost analysis from the World Warrior review. In my cost analysis of that game, I equated 1 credit in-game to 50 cents in real life, as that's how much it cost to play World Warrior back in the day. From here, I analyzed how much it would have cost me to roll credits with each character on the cast, and juxtaposed that with how much it would have cost to buy a brand new SNES with a copy of World Warrior. At the end of my time with World Warrior, I symbolically spent $137.50. In Champion Edition, it would take me $30.50 to complete the game with Dhalsim, which would be $4.50 less than my World Warrior Dhalsim playthrough. Balrog would cost me $16, $4.50 of which Blanka would consume. Honda would cost me $15.50, $10 of which Blanka devoured. Blanka would cost me $10, and the fact that it took so little hypothetical dollary dues to roll credits with him really shows how good the character is in this game. With my only entry-level experience with the title and Street Fighter games in general, I can't be completely sure that this is an objective fact for Champion Edition, but the evidence I do have does suggest Blanka is one of, if not the best, character for PvE gameplay. Vega cost me $15, 8 of which Blanka took to the bank. I spent $10.50 on my Guile run before getting fed up with the AI in this game and quitting, and afterwards I would skip Chun-Li, Zangief, Ryu, and Ken. For Bison and Sagat, I stopped after spending $5, meaning the grand total of these two near complete runs through the game is $10. This makes the grand total for my Champion Edition playthrough $100.50, and once again, that's without finishing Bison, Sagat, or Guile, or even attempting a Chun-Li, Zangief, Ryu, or Ken run. This is why I think the real quote-unquote enhancement Capcom made to Champion Edition is actually the AI's difficulty and cheating nature. Using the boss characters as bait to draw in more customers, Capcom very clearly and cleverly revised the quarter-consuming nature of Champion Edition to be more brutal than World Warrior. In World Warrior, you could get a decent amount of fun challenge from 5 quarters, whereas in Champion Edition, you get to steamroll for the first few rounds just to lose all of your quarters in a later round. In this way, I speculate Capcom figured they could really get their player base to feel like they could win with one more go, especially with the way the AI is clearly much easier in round 1 than any other round in a given match. So with that little bit of bookkeeping out of the way, how about I answer the question I cap off every review with: will it make my top 100 of the 90s? Guys, no. There's no way Champion Edition makes my top 100 of the 90s, especially since World Warrior didn't. This is honestly one of the most unfair games I've played in a long time, and while this was something arcades did all of the time, including MK2, which is a game I love, this game's cheating is just insane. I'm pretty sure MK2 technically has worse cheating, but since there are less moves and variables in that game, it's easier to find a way to exploit the AI. A version of Street Fighter 2 will make my top 100 because I do like the game's systems and mechanics, but it's going to be the version I find the most fun to play. I would be shocked if this version is better than Turbo, Super, and Super Turbo. I mean, as of right now, I like Champion Edition less than World Warrior. Because of my experience with this game, I am only giving myself a max of $10 per character to play through the future SF2 games because that's the point at which I typically get incredibly frustrated by cheating AI. World Warrior just feels more fair beyond Guile and Vega. In this way, Champion Edition is a step down from World Warrior. Turbo is the next game on my list, so here's to hoping Capcom actually improved their SF2 formula in that game. And that's the video, my guys. What do you all think of Champion Edition? Do you feel it's better than World Warrior? Let's discuss it in the comments below, and while you're there, smash that like button and subscribe. I make new gaming videos every single Friday, and I'm planning to release my Street Fighter 2 Turbo review next week. Ringing the notification bell is the only way to ensure you don't miss out on that video and all my future work. And if you have a moment right now, consider checking out one of my other videos on the screen. Regardless of what you choose to do, thank you for keeping it real with Rayl Deal Games. Have an awesome day, my friend.